Welcome to the deep dive. We're here to really get into the key insights from our sources.
That's right.
And today, we're tackling something that affects, well, pretty much everyone, but it's often really misunderstood. Introversion and extroversion. Okay, picture this. Rosa Parks, December 1st, 1955, Montgomery, Alabama. That bus ride.
A pivotal moment.
Absolutely. And when we think of her, many probably imagine someone naturally bold, maybe outspoken.
You might assume that, yeah.
But her obituaries, they actually called her soft-spoken, sweet, and small.
Yeah.
That quiet strength she had. It wasn't separate from her courage. It was, like, core to it.
Such a powerful point. It really cuts against the grain, doesn't it? Challenges this whole idea we have about what makes someone effective or, successful.
It really does. And that's kind of our mission today. We want to unpack this big idea called the extrovert ideal, especially in Western culture.
How it shapes things.
Exactly. How it shapes how we see success, leadership, even how we see ourselves. We'll look at what introversion really is, uncover some of its hidden strengths.
And the science behind it too, right?
Definitely. Get into the science behind these differences. The goal here is to give you some insights for, well, navigating a world that often seems to demand constant outward confidence.
Yeah, navigating that pressure.
Okay, so let's start with the basics. We need to define these terms. The psychologist Carl Jung, he's the one who really popularized introvert and extrovert way back in 1921.
A foundational figure for sure.
Right, and his idea was basically introverts are drawn inward to thoughts and feelings. They recharge, by being alone.
Their energy comes from solitude.
And extroverts, they're drawn outward. The people, activities, they get their energy buzz from socializing. It feels pretty different, right?
It does. And it's a crucial distinction. But modern psychology, well, it's kind of moved beyond seeing them as just two simple boxes.
Oh, okay. How so?
We'll take the Big Five personality traits model. It's like a standard framework now. It defines introversion more in terms of lacking certain traits like, say, assertiveness or high sociability.
Less about a rich inner life, more about outward behavior.
Kind of. It doesn't mean introverts don't have a rich inner life, just that the definition focuses on that lower drive for external stimulation and social dominance. And it's super important to stress, introversion isn't the same as being shy.
Right. Not the same thing.
Or being a hermit or hating people and misanthrope. They can overlap, sure, but you can be an introvert who enjoys being social. You just experience it differently. Need that downtime after.
That makes sense. So for you listening, maybe take a second. Quick self-check. Do you usually prefer one-on-one talks over big group things?
Do you need quiet time to feel refreshed?
Yeah, like after a busy day or a party, do you crave solitude? Maybe with a book.
How about small talk? Exhausting, but deep conversations, those energize you.
And if people told you you're a good listener, like really good.
If you're nodding along to some of that, well, you might lean towards the introverted side of the spectrum.
Okay, so this extrovert ideal we mentioned, it wasn't always the main thing, was it? Especially in the U.S.
No, not at all. There was a pretty big shift historically.
Yeah, people talk about moving from a culture of character, the duty, honor, integrity, things like that.
And your virtues.
Exactly. To a culture of personality. And this really picked up steam in the 1920s. Suddenly, it was all about charm, magnetism, being, expressive.
Being captivating.
Right. Think about self-help books. They literally changed.
Yeah.
It used to be about building character, then it became about having a masterful personality. And Dale Carnegie.
How to win friends and influence people. Huge.
Totally. That book really cemented this shift in what society valued.
And the pressure that created, it was intense. Suddenly, if you were talkative, people just assumed you were smarter, more interesting, more desirable.
Even if you weren't saying anything profound.
Exactly. Research shows there's like zero link between being chatty and having good ideas.
Yeah.
Even how fast you talk start to matter. Faster talkers seemed more competent.
Wow.
And advertising, it jumped right on that anxiety. Products promising to cure stage fright make you charismatic.
Exploiting that insecurity.
Totally. And it wasn't just social stuff. Even top universities like Harvard and Yale in the 40s and 50s, they explicitly said they wanted the healthy extrovert kind.
Seriously, they said that.
Yep. They actually stated they had little use for the brilliant introvert. Can you imagine?
That's incredible. So this really filtered into major institutions. How far did it actually go? Does it affect how we even define things medically?
It absolutely did. Think about social anxiety disorder. Basically extreme shyness. It became an official diagnosis in the DSM-IV, the big psychiatric manual.
So shyness became pathologized.
In its extreme form, yeah. And fear of public speaking. If it messes with your job, boom, it can be diagnosed. It's a really clear example of how society's norms about being outgoing can actually shape medical definitions of what's normal.
Okay, but
Yeah.
is that ideal always right? Is extroversion always the best path? What happens when we look past that? Like Eleanor Roosevelt.
Ah, great example.
People described her initially as shy, serious, hated small talk.
Yeah.
Famous for it.
Yeah, not your typical public figure mold.
But she became this incredibly powerful advocate, right? FDR's conscience, they called her. She found her voice, thrived in public life, not by changing who she was fundamentally, but maybe because of her depth, her empathy.
Exactly. Her quieter nature was part of her strength. And we see this pattern elsewhere. Think about Moses.
From the Bible.
Yeah, described as meek, a stutterer, slow of speech. He was reluctant to lead, right? Only agreed when his brother Aaron, who was more extroverted, teamed up with him.
So a partnership.
Right. Moses was the thinker, the speechwriter behind the scenes. Aaron was the public speaker. It shows how different styles can work together really effectively.
Okay, moving to more modern times.
Sure. Steve Wozniak, Apple co-founder.
Oh, was?
Exactly. Self-proclaimed shy guy. He famously said something like, "Nothing really revolutionary has been invented by committee." His advice, work alone.
Solitude is fuel for innovation.
Absolutely. For him, it was crucial.
This really makes you question the standard leadership image. If it's so often extroverted, what unique strengths do introverted leaders bring? Especially in maybe certain situations.
That's a fantastic question. And there's research on this. Adam Grant at Wharton, his work is fascinating.
What did he find?
He found that introverted leaders can actually be more effective, particularly when their employees are proactive. People who take initiative, suggest ideas.
Really? How so?
Well, in his studies, like with pizza chains or teams folding T-shirts, weirdly specific, I know.
Yeah.
The introverted leaders, when they had proactive teams, outperformed the extroverted leaders. Their profits were like over 14% higher.
Why that?
Because they were more likely to actually listen to and encourage those employee ideas. Extroverted leaders sometimes get so enthusiastic about their own vision, they might accidentally shut down others' input. Yeah. Introverts were better facilitators of bottom-up innovation.
That makes sense. Letting good ideas bubble up. And connecting this maybe to, say, the financial world. That reward sensitivity thing you mentioned.
Yeah.
The drive for excitement.
Right, that buzz. It can lead to big risks, sometimes irrational ones.
Whereas introverts,
yeah,
you said they're kind of programmed to downplay reward and scan for problems.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. They're often more vigilant, less swept up by the thrill of the chase. That caution, that tendency to scan for problems first, that can be a massive advantage, especially when things are volatile.
And did we see this play out, like, in the real world?
Oh, definitely. Think about the 2008 financial crisis. There were these quiet, cautious voices. Michael Burry, Charlie Ledley, Jamie Mai, even Warren Buffett to some extent.
I guess for The Big Short.
Some of them, yeah. They saw the disaster coming, but they were often ignored or dismissed because they weren't loud or, conventionally confident. They seemed diffident.
Despite being right.
Despite being dead right. It really highlights that introverted strength. They tend to think before they act, digest information thoroughly, stay on task longer, give up less easily, and work more accurately. Deliberation over impulse.
Okay, so we've seen the cultural side, the leadership side. Let's shift gears. What about the biology? What's actually happening inside us? What does the science say?
Yeah, this stuff is really cool. Jerome Kagan at Harvard did some landmark studies, started back in '89 with babies, just 4 months old.
4-month-olds. How do you test personality then?
Well, he exposed them to new stuff like mobiles with unfamiliar toys, recordings of voices, and he watched how they reacted. Some babies, the high reactive, went nuts, cried, kicked, waved their arms.
Highly sensitive to new things.
Exactly. Then you had the low reactives who were just chill, calm, quiet.
Okay, so high reactive and low reactive. What did that predict?
Here's the twist. The high reactive babies, the ones who freaked out, they were more likely to become quiet, thoughtful, even somewhat anxious teenagers.
Wait, the loud babies became quiet teens. How does that work?
It's thought to be linked to their amygdala, that's like the brain's little alarm system. In high reactive kids, it's just more sensitive, more easily triggered by novelty or stimulation.
So they feel things more intensely.
Right, which might lead them to naturally withdraw from overwhelming situations as they get older, to manage that sensitivity. Kagan called these kids highly sensitive to their environment. You sometimes hear the term Orchid children now.
Orchid children, meaning
Meaning they're like orchids, they can flourish spectacularly in the right supportive environment, but they're also more vulnerable, more easily wilted by harsh conditions, highly sensitive to both good and bad.
that's a really evocative image. And there's more science, right? Like Eysenk's theory.
Yeah, Hans Eysenck. His idea was about optimal stimulation. Basically, introverts have a naturally higher level of baseline cortical arousal.
Meaning their brains are sort of more on already.
Kinda, yeah. So they don't need as much external stimulation to feel alert and engaged. Too much actually pushes them past their optimal level into feeling overwhelmed. Extroverts, on the other hand, have lower baseline arousal, so they seek out more stimulation, noise, people, activity to reach their sweet spot.
And he tested this.
So yeah, famously he put lemon juice on people's tongues.
Lemon juice, seriously.
Yep. And the introverts salivated significantly more than the extroverts. Their physiological response to the same sensory input was just stronger.
Wow.
Another study had people choose noise levels while doing a task. Extroverts preferred it louder, around 72 decibels. Introverts picked a much quieter 55 decibels. Big difference.
So the same noise level feels different depending on your wiring.
Exactly. And this helps explain why some situations are draining for introverts. Too much stimulation over arousal doesn't just make them feel frazzled, it can actually impair their attention and short-term memory.
Which would affect performance, right? Like in public speaking on the spot.
Absolutely. Thinking clearly gets harder when your system is overloaded. Oh, and related to sensitivity, those skin conductance tests, where they measure sweat.
Yeah.
Introverts tend to be more thin-skinned. They literally sweat more in response to stimuli, indicating higher physiological arousal.
And blushing. I know people hate blushing.
Right. It feels like a total disadvantage. But research suggests blushing actually acts as a kind of social glue. It signals to others that you're aware of social norms, maybe feeling a bit embarrassed or empathetic, which makes you seem more trustworthy. It's an honest signal.
Huh. Never thought of it that way. Okay, so we've got biology, history, but is this extrovert ideal really a worldwide thing? Or do different cultures see it differently? How about Asian societies, for example?
That's a crucial question. And no, it's definitely not universal. Cultural context matters hugely. Take somewhere like Cupertino, California, lots of Asian Americans there. Introversion isn't necessarily looked down upon.
Really?
Yeah, in many circles there, it's actually highly respected and admired. There's often a much stronger emphasis on academic achievement, deep thinking, maybe being quiet and focused, over being the most outgoing person in the room.
That's interesting. How does that play out in education?
Well, traditional East Asian classrooms often prioritize listening, writing, memorization. Talking out of turn, or even sometimes active participation, might be discouraged compared to Western classrooms.
Which could create challenges later.
It can. You sometimes hear about the deference barrier for Asian students entering Western universities, where professors expect constant vocal participation. It's a clash of cultural norms about how learning and respect are shown.
So for you listening, it's this contrast, isn't it?
Yeah.
Western culture often champions individual freedom, self-expression, being heard.
Loudly sometimes.
Right. Whereas many Asian cultures might value quietness, humility, sensitivity more, seeing those as key to group harmony.
Yeah, there's a story about Don Chen, a Chinese-American student at Harvard Business School. His white American roommate just came out and complained directly about dirty dishes in the sink. Standard enough in the U.S., maybe.
Okay.
But Chen's Asian friends thought that was really harsh, confrontational. They said in their culture, you'd maybe phrase it as a question or hint at it, or maybe just clean it yourself to avoid conflict and preserve group harmony.
Wow. Such different approaches to the same simple problem based on valuing the group versus the individual up front.
Exactly. It impacts everything. How you give feedback, how you negotiate, how you build teams.
Okay, so given all this, the biology, the culture, the pressures, how can people actually navigate this?
Yeah.
Especially if you lean introverted in a world that seems built for extroverts. What can you do?
Well, Professor Brian Little has this great idea called free trait theory.
Free trait theory. Okay.
The core idea is, yes, we have these innate traits, our sort of biological predispositions, but we aren't prisoners of them. We can, and often do, act out of character.
Like an introvert acting extroverted.
Exactly. But the key is why. We do it when it serves what Little calls our core personal projects, things that are deeply meaningful and important to us.
Can you give an example?
Little himself is a strong introvert, but he gives these incredibly energetic, engaging lectures. Why? Because Teaching, connecting with students, that's a core personal project for him. It's worth the energy expenditure.
So you could stretch, but it has to be for something that really matters to you.
Precisely. And knowing this is empowering. One really practical application is finding your restorative niche.
Restorative niche, like a place to recharge.
Exactly. It could be a physical space, your quiet office, a corner of the library, even a specific walking path. Or it could be a temporal space, scheduling 15 minutes of quiet time between back-to-back meetings.
Or maybe choosing email over a phone call sometimes.
Perfect example. Or think about Robert Rubin, Clinton's Treasury Secretary. He apparently liked to sit at the foot of the table in big meetings, still present but slightly removed, giving him space to observe and think before jumping in. It's about finding those little pockets where you can return to your natural state and refuel.
Finding your niche. I like that. What about negotiating this with others, like free trade agreements?
Rubin, Clinton's Treasury Secretary. Or think about Robert Rubin, Clinton's Treasury Secretary. He apparently liked to sit at the foot of the table in big meetings, still present but slightly removed, giving him space to observe and think before jumping in. It's about finding those little pockets where you can return to your natural state and refuel.
Finding your niche. I like that. What about negotiating this with others, like free trade agreements? What's that?
That's another great concept from Little. It's basically about being upfront and actively negotiating with people in your life, friends, family, coworkers, to create space for your natural tendencies.
So actually talking about it.
Yeah, like saying to your partner, hey, after that big party, I'm probably going to need an hour to myself to decompress.
Yeah.
Or telling your team, I do my best thinking when I have some focused, uninterrupted time in the morning. It's about making your needs clear so you can honor them without feeling guilty and others understand.
That takes some courage, but makes sense. And public speaking. That big fear for many introverts.
Yeah, instead of trying to fake being some super boisterous presenter, maybe focus on strategies that work with your nature. Desensitization, gradual exposure can help lower the anxiety. Practice, absolutely. But also just being yourself. Connect with your material, speak authentically. Your quiet conviction can be just as powerful, maybe more so, than forced enthusiasm.
Right. Authenticity over imitation. What about parents? If you have an introverted child, it must be tempting to try and push them to be more outgoing.
It can be because of that extrovert ideal we talked about, but the advice usually is don't try to cure their introversion. See it as a different, equally valid way of being.
So support them as they are.
Yes, and help them find their strengths within that. Support their passions. Maybe it's coding or art or music, like David Weiss finding his tribe through drumming. Help them build social skills, gradually role play, meeting new people. Maybe arrive early to parties so it's less overwhelming at first.
Focus on quality over quantity in friendships.
Exactly. Help them find one or two good, solid friends. That's often much more important for their well-being than being the most popular kid in class. It's about understanding and acceptance, not trying to force them into a different mold.
Ultimately, it sounds like the message for introverts is trust your instincts, find your own ways to contribute, whether it's through quiet conversation, writing, behind-the-scenes work, or finding allies. Don't feel like you have to shout to be heard.
Absolutely. Your way has its own power.
So wrapping this up, we've really dug into how introversion, which is so often undervalued, is actually a pretty powerful trait. It's got deep biological roots, real advantages in thinking critically, being cautious, showing empathy.
And it's clear we need both introverts and extroverts, right? They bring different, equally valuable things to the table.
Definitely. Both perspectives are crucial.
And that brings up a final thought, maybe a bit provocative. If you look at evolutionary biology, there's this trade-off theory. It suggests that having diverse personalities in a species like, you see shy and bold fish, or hawk and dove strategies in birds, is actually good for survival.
Because different approaches work better in different situations.
Exactly. The bold fish finds food first, but the shy fish avoids the predator. So, thinking about us humans, what might we gain if we consciously tried to value and integrate both that introverted caution and deliberation and that extroverted drive and action?
Not just personally, but in our organizations, our leadership.
Yeah. What would a world look like? What would our companies or governments look like if we genuinely valued looking before you leap just as much as we value catching the early worm? How might that make us more balanced, more resilient?
That's definitely something to think about. How to truly harness the strengths of both sides.